Hey guys, so for this week's little gold recovery installment, I haven't got that much going on, but I thought it might be a really good time to show you guys the new microscope that I got. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at some interesting things with it. Not going to bother going through all the specs right now. I'll put the link to the actual microscope in the comments and you guys can just go check out all the specs there. But what I can say is we have a couple of these at work at the moment, and I found it so good that I thought it was actually worth buying one for myself for at home, because they are really spectacular value for money. You can see I've got it going to the PC monitor there in the background, so probably the rest of the video will make the PC monitor the main video, and I'll try and inset the camera so that you guys can actually see what I'm going to be looking at, as well as what it looks like through the microscope. So I'll just show you what I've got planned here. I had a hunt through my ceramic CPU retirement fund, and luckily enough there was a broken one, so we can have a bit of a look at that. So I'm basically just trying to go through and show you guys which things actually have gold, which things don't have gold, and why. Basically looking at their construction. Then I had a hunt through my, this is the tops of like North and South bridge chips, and some video cards and things have them. So these are obviously high quality E-ways. So I've got a couple of those that happen to break nicely, so we can have a look at those. And then if we look a bit closer, there's some like ceramic EPROMs and things. We'll have a look at those as well. These are mostly gold braids, whereas these are mostly going to be bond wires that are interesting. And then we'll also have a look at some other things here, but I'll show you those as we go. At the end of the video, let's go over to this side. At the moment, this weekend, I'm busy processing a kilogram or so of like RAM BGA chips, and so I've got the various phases of the processing. This is my this is my final concentrate here, so you can see a very small amount of stuff from a kilogram of chips. So we'll have a look at that. This was the initial very coarse sieving to get rid of the big things, and what we want to make sure is that we didn't have any bond wires go into this one. This here was the stuff that after it got washed, it went through a 60 mesh sieve, so we also want to make sure we haven't got any or many bond wires in this one. And then this one hopefully is going to be full of bond wires. Okay, so I'll get set up and let's get the video underway. Okay guys, so the sound may have changed a little bit as I've switched to the headset, and we're recording the main video for the microscope on the PC. And what you'll see on the screen at the moment is I've got a little card that basically just allows us to get some idea of the size of things. And this is the lowest amount of zoom, and then if I go to the maximum zoom of the microscope, oops, just try and find those little things again and give it a bit of focus, and we'll see that. So that is 1 millimeter across between those lines. If we go up this way a bit, that is a 0.1 millimeter grid. And if we go to the right of the grid a little bit, you can also get some idea. So that's a 30 micrometer thickness line. And the nice thing here is I might be able to, if we're lucky, use some of these lines to estimate the thickness of some of the bond wires we're going to be looking at. Okay, so if we grab, firstly, this is some kind of CPU. Looks like this is the only one that I had in my box of my retirement CPU box that was broken, so it's very handy that it's got a lot of cool things we can look at. This is a VIA C3, looks like a 700 megahertz IC, and for some reason I got it broken. Generally, it doesn't really matter. I've never actually processed ceramic CPUs. I find that they're quite nice, so might keep them, and you know, one day when I'm old I'll see if they're worth more to collectors than they are and the few grams of gold that's going to be in there. So let's whack it under the microscope and have a look. So we'll zoom out, get rid of the card for now. Let's see if there's anything on that side worth looking at. So the main thing that's going to be interesting here is we probably have like a copper a little copper lid, which is nothing special. It's going to be gold plated, but you'd want to deplate that with either cyanide or a sulfuric cell. And then it looks like a little bit of gold braze or gold solder that actually holds that on. So that there might be a little bit of gold to recover in that as well if you're going to AR the whole CPU. The really cool part is the other side. So obviously the pins are not going to be super special. They're going to have a very thin coating of gold over some either Covar or copper or some copper-based alloy. But what is really cool is if we start looking around here. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit, and then I'll just focus it for you guys. Zoom in a little bit and look at the actual. So you can see the plated contacts where the gold bond wires are going to connect. And what is really cool, I'm going to have to work on the focus a little bit. Sorry, that's going to happen through the whole video as I move things around. What is really cool is you can actually see what's happening inside now. So the die is over there in the back. We're kind of looking, using the microscope to look through a hole now. It's about as focused as I can get it with the current size of this chip. And you can actually see the rows of, you can actually clearly see the rows of gold bond wires, which is very good. So this is the reason why we love ceramic CPUs. They have a lot of gold bond wires, and they also have a lot of gold plating all around. And I'm sure we'll find, if I were to break this open, there'll be a little bit of gold holding the die down as well. And the other reason, of course, we love ceramic CPUs is because all the rest of the substrate is quite inert. So there's very little work to be done here. You can pretty much get rid of the big caps, throw the rest of the stuff in aqua regia, and just sit back while all the gold dissolves. So yeah, gotta love ceramic CPUs. So that is the #1 thing to look at. So ceramic CPUs, probably one of your highest or best forms of e-waste. You don't really see them that often anymore, but what you do see quite a lot are these kind of things. Let me just get this maximum out for you guys so you can have a look. I'm not sure what this particular chip is that we're looking at. It looks like it's made by Apple, but this is just a good example of a what I call blacktop BGA. So this is the gold corner BGA, like Northbridge and Southbridge chips. And I don't process these very often because it takes quite a long time to get to the point where you've got a kilogram or so of these. But they are also quite high quality e-waste, and I'll show you the reason why they're so high quality at the moment, or high quality now. The bond wires are basically what we're mining here, and to get gold out of bond wires, you need either more gold bond wires or you need thicker gold bond wires. Now, bond wire thickness is relatively fixed. I mean, it does change, but not dramatically. But in chips like these, just look at the amount of bond wires. So what you're looking at is the edge of the bond wire where it was fused to the kind of the PCB substrate below that we just broke off. And you can see there's still a few tracks left up there. So what you've got is a lot of bond wires, and the other thing that's beautiful with these type of chips is they are very long. So I'm going to put the ruler over the top. Hopefully this is going to work. Yes, it is. The die is over there where the 0 is, and you can see there that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, say up to 5 millimeters of gold bond wire in there, and that is an incredibly long piece of bond wire. The ones closer you can see are probably more like 1 millimeter, but yeah, so that's really nice being able to see using that why they are so good. If we put I'll put the line thickness thing over, you'll see there, if we compare the thickness of the line, I'm just going to try and maybe get the focus a little bit better. If we compare the thickness of that line to the thickness of the bond wire should still be a little bit thinner. That line you're looking at is 30 microns, 30, and the bond wires usually are going to be in the order of about 15 microns. So probably about half of what that line is what they're supposed to be. They could be 20 micron as well, but it just shows that they are on the order of what you would expect for gold bond wires. Now, the really cool thing is I took one of these chips. I'll just bring it out into maximum zoom again. I took one of these ICs, put it in the vise so that it was held through the middle of the die, like horizontally across there. And then what I did is I just pressed a little bit on it, and I managed to break one roughly through the middle, because I wanted to show you guys. So we know it's about 5 millimeters of bond wire from there to about there. But the other really cool thing is that the bond wire obviously doesn't, the bond wire goes to this is the bottom of the die we're looking at right there. The bond wire actually goes to the top of the die, so it has a curve in it. And if you get lucky, I think one of these I got pretty lucky. If you get lucky, you might be able, I have to zoom out quite a lot. Yeah, so you can start to see the curve. Going to zoom in and to see if I can get this into focus for you guys. There we go. You can actually see the curve that the bond wire makes. So on this particular chip, we know that between the die there and the land here where the bond wire connects, you can actually see the line that the bond wire followed. You've actually got a bit of a curve. So not only do you have 5 millimeters, you probably have a little bit more because of that curve. So really very nice to see. See it on that side as well. How you've got the closer connections, which are about 1 millimeter, and then you've got those far away ones, which are about 5 millimeters there that we looked at before. We'll just have a quick look at the other side of the same chip. I can't remember if it had something worth seeing. Oh yeah, so basically the same thing you can see there. Just see if I go to maximum zoom, focus becomes quite difficult, and obviously I'm holding it with my fingers, which is also quite difficult. It's sometimes worth using a bit of sticky stuff like blue tack, just holding things down so you don't move so much. But yeah, so you can see very obvious why these chips are high quality e-waste. It is because they have very, very many bond wires, lots and lots and lots of bond wires. If we go back to the other side and we zoom in, there we go. You just see this particular one that I broke. You can just see how, I mean, it's just got, I don't know how many hundreds of bond wires. So there's heaps of them. They are very long, and that is what makes this type of thing exceptionally good quality e-waste. Okay, so that was cool. Let's just have a quick look at some other ones that I had here that I thought might be worth showing. We're just going to go to maximum, maximum zoom out and actually just focus that a little bit. I'll just try and hold things a little bit better. So this one I thought was quite cool because it's got all these little, on the opposite side of where the solder balls are, it's got all these little gold lands on the, this is like a plastic base BGA. So if I turn that around, you guys can see it's one of those like kind of plasticky, high temperature plastic obviously, BGAs. And if we look at the side, once again, I think you can see a few gold bond wires there. Obviously nothing quite as amazing. Just see if we zoom in a little bit and then focus it. Yes, you can see a few gold bond wires there in the substrate. This one obviously didn't break quite as nicely there on the corner. Didn't break quite as nicely as the last one, so not quite as easy to show. But this is a normal BGA. Like when I say normal BGA chip, I mean like the type that you find on more related to the type that you find on RAM and so forth. So this is not the one where it's easy to peel off the green, like the gold corner green part. This is where you process the whole chip, and you can see that they do obviously have gold, as we're well aware. Now, the next part is, I'll show you a couple of these. They are, so I've got one of those. Just a basic, this is a Broadcom networking chip, and what was nice about looking at this one is this actually has a heat spreader built into it as well. So it's a BGA chip, as you can see, ball grid array, plasticky kind of bottom that you can't peel off very easily. You might be able to peel this one. It's got a bit of an edge, but I probably would just chuck this in with my normal BGAs. What I did with this one is I just grabbed one and broke it open quite roughly. It happened to break right there. And you can actually see the heat spreader. You can see the die on top of the heat spreader, and if you get the focus just right there, you can see the gold bond wires, which is quite nice to look at. I'll just show you
an end-on view of the die. Zoom all the way in, get the thing into a little bit of focus, and you can see, because this is the side of the die we're looking at, you can actually see all the gold bond wires in the substrate right above the die, and you can see there where they connect to the actual die. So yeah, quite cool to be able to see this. This is where having a decent microscope really really helps you out. Okay, so the next step, let's quickly grab something from my scrap pile here, is this is what we're going to be looking at here. I'll just zoom out all the way. This one here, actually I should do it on this camera, it's much more sensible. This is a controller board from a CD-ROM drive. Now, obviously, as we know, these big square flatbacks, they're quite good for gold recovery. So in the past I always used to grab those, but these are fairly low pin count and they have the big heat spreader, so I think these are the motor drivers, and I've never actually bothered to grab those before, but I thought, seeing as I had a microscope, let's crack one open and have a look. And so I've got this one here, which happened to break nicely. Chucked it under the microscope, and as you will see, gold bond wires. So I was quite surprised by that. I would have thought that to get the kind of the power you need to run motors and things, they just go with aluminium. But as you can see there, let's just try and get the focus a little bit better. So you can clearly see these two have gold bond wires. So it's quite surprising sometimes. When I say gold, they may be gold-plated copper or anything like that. It's completely possible. But that looks very much like a, hard to hold it and do the focus at the same time. That looks very much like a gold bond wire there. So yeah, in the future I'll probably just grab those while I'm harvesting from those CD-ROM drives. No reason really not to. Here is another similar thing. This is just this is just a circuit that I was harvesting. You'd see it had a very nice big chip there. It probably had some kind of memory chip there. It had this chip here which didn't come off very easily. You can see all the components removed quite easily. And as I was bending the board to try and get the chip off, it broke. And I'll just show you. Sometimes you get lucky and things just break in a nice way. So if we look at this one, you can see the die. Let's get that focus right. You can see the die. You can see all the little gold dots, which are basically where they have fused the bond wire to the die. And sometimes you get lucky and they break quite nice. I just have to get the zoom right. And you get a really nice view of quite a long bond wire, like that one there. Let me just... what we'll do is just grab that little plastic ruler and see if I am able to get some idea. No, I think I'm not going to be able to get it flat on there, because I have to essentially have that one sitting flat and then try and put it on. And it might get difficult to judge then the length of the bond wire because you can't really see it. Yeah, so what we're looking at there, nope, that's our inches, that's not what we want. We're going to look at millimeters. What we're looking at there is probably still a bond wire that's a few millimeters long. So there's 2 millimeters in there. And yeah, so, you know, sometimes even chips like that will show you something nice. This was quite a nice one to look at because it's got this heat spreader under the die that's actually quite a lot bigger than the die itself. And obviously what happens is the legs can't come, they only come too close to the heat spreader, they don't go over the heat spreader, which means that there's a bit of a chance that chips with a heat spreader like this will actually have longer bond wires because they can't actually bring the legs as close to the die as they want to. Okay, so next step, let's have a look at this one here. So this is just a ceramic EEPROM, and this is pretty representative of what I have in terms of ceramic EEPROM. So looking at any one of them is as good as the other. So looking at this, let's get the zoomage going up a little bit. That pretty much fills my screen. And so what you are chasing here, as you can see through the little, so this has still got its window intact. As you can see, you have got aluminium bond wires, and it's surprising that pretty much every ceramic EEPROM I've ever seen had aluminium bond wires. I don't see them with gold very often. What I do see some of the time, which is why these are still very nice chips, is the gold braze that attaches. So this one's got two little dies. It's got one there and one there, and the gold braze attaches the die to the substrate of the chip. So you can see there's quite a bit of gold braze there, and gold braze can sometimes be surprisingly thick. If I put this over the top, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably like 7 millimeters by 7 millimeters. So that's 49 square millimeters of area there. So that's quite a bit of gold braze you've got happening there. So yeah, like if you can get ceramic CPU, ceramic EEPROMs, and or anything with gold braze ceramic memory, that all seems to pan out pretty well. Okay, let's change stack a little bit, and I want to show you guys a couple of things that are bad for gold recovery and why. So these ones here must be pretty common to everyone now. They're BGA chips. Oops, drop that one. So BGA chips. So this is actually a CPU. So this one's got pins. The normal BGA just has your little solder balls on the bottom, and they have the exposed die. And these are worthless for gold recovery. There will be trace amounts of gold, but nothing that's worth any amount of effort. The reason being, as I've broken one open, and I'll show you on the microscope now. The reason they're worthless for gold recovery, if we get this right, is, I have to get our focus right, and maybe we'll zoom in on that bit. So what happens with these is the die, that bit there, is soldered directly to the PCB, which is just fiberglass like that bit there, and everything is just copper. You've got through-hole copper plating there. Let me zoom in on that. So as you can see, everything underneath is copper. So if you want to be very technical about it, it's very likely that before the die got soldered on, the pads underneath the die were gold plated. But by gold plating, we are talking about ENIG, electroless nickel immersion gold, and incredibly thin, like 5 microinches. So these things, as far as I'm concerned, are completely worthless for gold recovery. The little capacitors on them probably actually has more precious metals than the processor itself, or the chip itself. Okay, so the next thing to look at here, you see these two little dots. Very often on trackpads for mice and things like that, you have this black blob system. Sometimes you get lucky, so you can see the size is quite small. Sometimes you get lucky and the black blobs have some form of, so they've got gold bond wires. And I seem to be quite unlucky because I picked two here at random from my collection. Let me see if I can get this into focus for you. The lucky part is that both of them had these little voids in them that allowed me to see the bond wires. So you can see the die in the middle, you can see where it was attached to the PCB, and if you look through those 3 little voids there, where I can put the tweezer tip through, you will see that the bond wires on that one and the bond wires on this one, which is the second one that I grabbed, which is the only two that I have at the moment, are both, see if I can get that hole into focus, there we go, are both actually aluminium. So both of these two black blobs are completely worthless for gold recovery. Sometimes, solder, sometimes these can be excellent if you can get a whole bunch of them that are gold bond wire. They will be fantastic, but these particular ones, rubbish bin, completely waste of time. Okay, now let me show you a couple of the next, like we're getting to the end of this. So what we have here is a little melting dish, and what I wanted to do initially is I wanted to incinerate some powder that came from ICs that had been ball milled to dust basically. After I had treated it with HCl, and I thought, well, you know, I need something hot, need something that can handle heat, so I'll just try putting it in one of my old crucibles that I wasn't using anymore. I basically tipped out all the powder and thought, oh yeah, there's a little bit of the black dust left over, but who cares? In the end, as I will show you, if we go zoom all the way out and I just get the focus right, yeah, I mean, even looking with an average microscope, you'd see that, or looking with a magnifying glass, you'd think it doesn't look too bad. Looks like it doesn't look like I've lost much gold here, until you actually zoom in a little bit, get the focus right, and then all of a sudden the picture changes a little bit, and you can see that there are gold bond wires everywhere through this dust that had obviously gotten stuck in the borax that had melted in this crucible. So, you know, not much gold in the grand scheme of things, but when you're only recovering, say, 2 grams at a time, you know, from like a kilo of average chips or something like that, then, you know, you've still got losses here, and they, you know, it's good to know where your losses are, and that's where I've been finding the microscope most valuable. So you can clearly see the value in the microscope there just by being able to see those losses in reality that you can't really see with the naked eye. The last thing on the list on this side, before we move over to the other end, is we have a little melting crucible that I've used a few times for melting gold. It's got some borax in it, and you can see a few splashes of yellow in there, which are basically just gold that has gotten stuck, and I thought it might be worth showing you how interesting this looks. So what you're looking at there, I'm just going to bring the focus in. What you're looking at there is obviously a little bit of gold spatter that got caught in the borax. It's not really actually, if we zoom in, you actually get a much nicer idea of how beautiful that actually looks, and how really, like, it's kind of just an absolutely, like, when I saw this, I was just dumbstruck by the beauty of the gold that is stuck in there. Now that is not very much gold. It might, you know, through the microscope it might look impressive, but there's hardly anything there. It's tiny, it's milligrams. Those ones there also look very nice. You can see how they formed little balls that ended up not joining the big thing getting melted, but yeah, very cool looking. Just thought it might be worth a look. Okay, so very close to the end now. So we've got 3 containers now. I'll just show them to you individually. This one here is after the chips have gone through the incineration process, and I was basically just doing the main sieve initially with, like, it's probably about a 30 mesh sieve or something like that, very coarse, just to get rid of the main chunks and the heat spreaders and things like that. So we'll have a look at those. On the small screen there, what we've got is the stuff that came out later of 60 mesh, but let's just have a look at the, let me get this figured out and focused for you guys. So, okay, that looks good enough. And what we're obviously hoping, seeing as that is our initial sieve, we're hoping that there's not going to be any gold in this particular one that's under the microscope now. And I think it looks to be, I'll just zoom in a bit and get the focus done. It looks to be that I don't think there actually is any or very much gold. There's a few specks like that. So what you're actually looking at there is a little bit of gold plating on a piece of, it's quite shiny, so it's actually quite easy to see. It's a little bit of gold plating on a piece of copper or something like that. So it was too big to, it's not a bond wire anyway, so I wasn't too panicked about that kind of stuff. Yeah, so another, you know, very useful feature of having a decent microscope is you can go through and you can check your wash waste and your, you know, your sieve waste and stuff like that, and just get some idea. Let's have a look and see if that, yes, that's another little bit of, looks like a gold plated something there. You do obviously lose a tiny little bit, but you've gotten rid of just masses and masses of copper and things in here. So you've got to accept that you're never going to get all of the gold, and well, you know, following a standard kind of process like this. So, so yeah, that's looking really good. On this side here, we have so this is the stuff, you see it's much more, it flows much nicer. What happened with this is it went through the wash process, and then I dry it, and then I put it through a 60 mesh sieve. I find if I go lower than 60 mesh, so if I go to 100 mesh or so, I'd start trapping bond wires. But I think with a 60 mesh, we'll have a look with the microscope now, but I don't think you've got very many bond wires getting trapped. Let me get the focus right there, and we'll just see what we can see with the microscope. Let's have a look. It looks something a little bit shiny there. Let's just see if we can see what that is. Okay, so what we're actually looking at there, see how it's very bright. Oh, sorry, now I've lost it. What that was a piece of silicon dye. So that's why it looked so bright under the light. It was catching the light and reflecting it, so probably what that's going to be as well. I find if I'm hunting for bond wires, it helps to be closer to the edges here, and it helps to be all the way zoomed in. So we're looking at very small, like, you know, the stuff is still getting caught by 60 mesh, but it's pretty small. And yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to just find one bond wire so I can show you guys just how small a scope we're looking for. But as I said, I've experimented with this quite a bit, and as long as I stick to about 60 mesh for this level of sieving, I don't seem to catch bond wires, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to not catch bond wires when I'm trying to get rid of this stuff. So the only reason I get rid of this stuff that doesn't go through 60 mesh is so that the whole blue bowl system works much better. If your stuff is uniform shape and size, then separating by density works by far the best. But it still would have been quite nice to be able to at least show you a bond wire. But no such luck. I did way too good a job here at separating this stuff out. Okay, so very last thing we'll show today is we've got this from about 1 kilogram of chips. This is what I was end up with out of the blue bowl. Haven't done any further processing on this, just from what you've just seen with the sieving and so forth. Went through the blue bowl, so let's smash that into the microscope. You can see, sorry, it's got some water still over there. The microscope doesn't seem to have too much trouble focusing through the water on the surface. So I'm going to let's start out at this zoom level and focus. So at the wide zoom, with the way that I've got this microscope set up, the lenses I'm using, you're not really seeing very much. You know, it doesn't. Oh, seem to have lost a little camera. That's okay. I think we're done with that anyway. You don't seem to see very much in terms of bond wires, but if I start zooming in, then we're going to have to get the focus really nice under the surface, then all of a sudden the bond wires will start appearing pretty much everywhere. There's a bunch, there's a bunch. So now you've got some there, some there. There's a long one there. Look how nice and long that guy is. Once you get it to this phase, and of course the other problem is that a lot of the gold is going to fall to the bottom of the stuff, because what I've got in this beaker is still a bit of a, let's see if I can get the focus better, it's still a bit of a mixture of stuff. So yeah, if you look here on the edge, you can see quite a lot of bond wires happening there. Yeah, so the gold being heavy sinks to the bottom. And yeah, so once again, one of the nice things of a microscope like this is it doesn't really matter where I stop this, there will be gold bond wires all through this. Like there's not a single frame you're going to get now that doesn't have a gold bond wire in it, because this is the concentrate, and this is where we expect all the gold bond wires to be. Let's see if I can improve the focus a little bit there. There we go. Yeah, so that basically, hopefully, will show you guys the power of having a decent microscope, even one like this that is comparatively quite cheap. You can see very, very useful. I guess one of the things you should see in this as well is that there's still quite a lot of silica, and there's still quite a lot of copper and so forth. So the the blue bowl will only do so much at separating this stuff out, and at this point is usually where I go for chemicals to separate, because the silica is going to be completely inert. The carbon, I'm not too, there is still a little bit of carbon in here, but I'm not too worried about that. I deal with that a bit later on. And yeah, so that is basically it for this video. I hope the rambling wasn't too much, and you guys found it enjoyable to see some of the interesting places that we're getting the gold from. If you guys have anything particular you'd like to see with the microscope, and it's something that I can get my hands on, please feel free to ask in the comments. I'm very happy to try and have a look if you think there might be something interesting. Okay guys, have a good one and good luck and be safe.